Sunday, right? Yeah. So it's a summit, a little bit longer, possibly not. I mean, if you're bored, we don't even have to. We don't have to do anything. But it has been a while, so I don't think I have my questions here. If anybody has any questions, you can send them, and we'll get them both Instagram and the other sites. Let's see, where do I want to start? I have so much to do. So much to do. But I'm just going to start here. I'm going to start with Rollo May, I think, or Nietzsche. We'll see. Nietzsche. So I'm going to start with Nietzsche, because what I'm going to talk about, obviously, consort, relationship, sex, and the like. And so I'm going to talk about various more complex aspects of the consort practice. It's funny, some of my friends came over who know what I'm up to and have known, and then I went in depth and they were like, oh my God. Oh, that's different from even what I thought. And these are like friends I see and talk to every day of the day.
This is one.
So there you go. So so from the birth of tragedy, Nietzsche posits a Dionysian impulse as the source of the Greek tragedy. Like Schopenhauer's will, it is an irrational force that surges up from the dark origins, and it expresses itself in wild, drunken frenzies, sexual abandon, and festivals of cruelty, which I just love that expression. I mean, I have wanted to describe what some people I know do, and I feel like I finally found festivals of cruelty. Okay. Pre-rational, unconscious force that can be harnessed and transformed to create something beautiful that can be harnessed. Really, we want to underscore, because it can not be harnessed as well. Totally different results. Just a lot more festivals of cruelty if it's not harnessed. So I thought this was pretty. Nietzsche contrasts master morality and slave morality. I mean, I like it because he can say it, I can't. In PC times, you get in big trouble, but he did it, so. But traces both back to the will to power. I want you to get how interesting that is. You have this impersonal force that operates through you that is primal. Primal, my king. Meaning, prior to consciousness as we know it. It's just operating through you, this force. Now, it expresses in two ways. I mean, more than that, but in this particular paradigm, master morality and slave morality. But he traces it, okay. So creating tables of values, imposing them on people, and judging the world according to them is one noteworthy expression of the will to power. Creating tables of values, imposing them on people, and judging the world according to them is a noteworthy expression of will to power. And this idea underlies Nietzsche's attempt to understand and evaluate moral systems. The strong, healthy, masterly types confidently impose their values on the world directly. The weak, by contrast, and this is what I think is great, seek to impose their values in a more cunning, roundabout way by making the strong feel guilty about their health, strength, egotism, and pride. So sometimes, I talk about the dangers of soft power, because there's this kind of power that operates under the radar that we don't acknowledge. But if you're on this talk, then you're probably somewhat advanced. If you're somewhat advanced, then you're going to want to know more what happens in the subtle realms than what only happens in the world of appearances. And so this is a very powerful way that especially women operate. Okay, so one particular form of the will to power that Nietzsche devotes much attention to is what he calls self-overcoming. And this is, okay, here the will to power is harnessed and directed toward self-mastery and self-transformation, guided by the principle that your real self lies not deep within you, I'm going to say, but deep below you, rather than high above you. But you can do whatever you wish. I love Jesus. I just went to the St. John of the Divine yesterday, and he seems to be in the high crowd, so that could be him too. But I say this last one because people often, one of the things that happens at this point of practice is we'll say the shadow starts rising up, and you have these like, oh my God, it's hopeless. Who am I? What are we going to do? And this is where 99% of people turn back, and very few people make it to the other side of the wall of karma. Very few people make it up to the wall of karma, but it is so harrowing and grueling to see what has been operating under the radar for so long that's where most people turn back. And then invariably there's a question, which by the way is part of the cunning. I'm going to say this, and that is, what do I do? What do I do? You know, now that I've seen that I'm all of these things that have collected in my basement, and that isn't the question. It just isn't. It's like the person who's saying, how do I quit drinking? You quit drinking by you quitting drinking. That's how you quit drinking. And so any other question after that point is an attempt to procrastinate, to put off what you actually need to do, which is to do exactly what you know to do. And that is to quit the habit. And so we're going to talk some also about that, because in Eros, because it's about unconditional freedom, you can't quit the behavior. You can't. There's no condition. You aren't allowed to quit conditions, and this goes very against Rachel Hempsey's new contact lenses. This goes very against the cultural narrative, right? Where you can just cut out conditions. Not only can you, but you should. I was just reading, more than any time in history, kids feel justified in cutting their parents off, for example. And I'm vehemently opposed to that, no matter who your parents are, by the way. But this idea that you can cut off a condition and be free is false. In order to be free, you have to be free unconditionally. So you have to find freedom inside of every single condition. So what we're talking about when we talk about consort, all of this, is we're talking about deliberately going into the sticky conditions that we usually avoid in order to believe we seem spiritual or put together. And what we're doing, so we're going in high altitude cross-training arenas, and then we're working out there. And you know, then the great news is when you come down to sea level, you're like, that's your problem? Got it. But you know, when you're up there, you know, you're always under some kind of arousal duress. Now, arousal duress is hot in its way. It has it's that feeling, what was it? Oh God, there's this great video of this guy who's getting ready to be pushed off a cliff. And he's like clinging to the guy. He's like, don't push me now, don't push me now. And he's like looking down, and you can see like he's really turned on about and his body's at like just total arousal. He's like, don't, and he's like holding on to the guy. Like that's what it feels like. So if you ever have that feeling, you'll know that you are in arousal. And your aim, see, in other practices, your aim is to retire. It is to work everything out, find pristine, perfect awareness, and then, you know, then you just spread your wealth. And we're the extreme sports philosophy. And so for me, how about that? Although I could say us about me, but we do it to keep doing it. It is for the thrill of being alive and to keep exercising that thrill of being alive. So the aim is to remain in perpetuity, to remain in arousal always. And the only way to remain in arousal is to have an obstacle. There is no other way. I think that's just really great for people to get. And if some of you have run out of obstacles, I can help you. You just might not be digging deep enough. But so you're constantly using the arousal as what you move against in order to get flight. And so that's the basic practice. And again, the aim, as far as I can tell, in this life, is to live in a state of perpetually increasing arousal. So it would be with perpetually increasing obstacles and discovering what you're made of every single time. Can I do this? And so the beauty is, and this is why in Om we don't practice climax, because what you're learning to do is to live perpetually in a state of uncertainty. Can you relax in this level of uncertainty, in this level, in this level, in this level, you know, and then the intensity and duress increases. Do you tighten? Anytime you tighten, you kill arousal. And so there's this practice of finding arousal here, finding it here. You know, your boss is yelling at you. Your wife is saying she's going to leave you for some big basketball player. You're I don't know what else there could be. A whole series of things. And or you get found out, you get exposed in some game you've played for 10 years that everyone always knew you were playing, but finally you admitted it. Whatever it is, that is the material. That is the material. You're not trying to get rid of that. You're just throwing it in the arousal stream. Okay, so your first work though is to get into flight. Your first work is to get into arousal. So we'll talk about that. But I also love this quote, and I think Eli Courtney can collect this for me. This is one of my favorite human beings ever, Rollo May. And so I talked about will to power because this is going to be what you're working with. And you know, the will to power, we have it, you know, we've had it that health is turning down your will to power to a manageable level that you can both maintain your behavior, your actions, and save face, right? And so she or he who can keep their arousal at the most manageable state that they look like they're always in control in a samsaric culture, it looks successful. And we're not that way. We're looking to take that will to power, and we're looking to have the power as high as we can humanly make it. Which is, I just want to say, there is nothing more countercultural that I talk about than that. It is to turn up the power of arousal. Arousal itself is viewed as dangerous, demonic, risky, whatever you want to call it. That's how it's viewed. And we're saying turn it up, which seems crazy, doesn't it? It seems crazy. And then the difficult procedure, then you unplug it from the self. Now, if it's just powering the self, it's bad, but at least you know. It's pretty predictable. The self is a very predictable vehicle for the most part. Every now and then somebody will do something that surprises me mildly. I'll be like, oh my God, that's shocking. But, but for the most part, you're just like, okay, yeah, there. It's not very creative because it's built historically. It just keeps repeating patterns. And then when a pattern goes terribly wrong, it slightly changes. But that's what all the self can do. So, so even if you turn up arousal, you have some idea what that person is going to do for the most part. Not entirely, but for the most part, you're like, oh, I mean, you at least know, like, okay, this person is going to, you know, wah, 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 or, you know, or they're going to attach and be obsessed, whatever it is, you know their propensity. So then you unplug it. This is where you have no clue. You have no idea. Nobody has seen what is in this glacier room. You know, unless you're down here deep in the karma, then you know. But so you pull it out, and this is where all of that stuff just begins to rise, and it's just mayhem. It's just, and this is what everybody fears. This is, I think, I mean, they say everyone fears death. First of all, I don't. Everyone fears unleashing, and most people fear it because they're good people. Or they're scared people, and they fear what would happen, that they would cause harm, right? And then, but you know, they fear that they would cause harm, and then often men aren't. I'm sorry, tuned in enough on this one. I love you guys, but every now and then I gotta give you a little spanky. Women are afraid that they would ingest forever. They would never stop consuming. That's, I mean, men have the same tendency when you unplug them, but they don't fear it. They should, but they don't. But you know, women, 9 times out of 10, when I say, let's run out the vision of if you were to totally unleash, where would it end? You know, she's somewhere just like, there's, you know, a cock in one hand, a bottle of wine in the other, so there's some donuts on her chest. It's just like, finally I could eat. And that's it. Yeah, while she's sitting on another, I mean, it's just like, you know, I once had this friend that was so powerful. She had an eating disorder, but she said, Nicole, I feel like a gutter rat at night, just going through and just inhaling anything I possibly can. And that stayed with me because I remember thinking, I think every woman feels that way. But she just has an eating disorder to cover the actual feeling of what she fears she would do. So we have these fears that we would unleash, and these just terrible, terrible things would happen. And I want to say they could. That's, I mean, I don't want to make a joke here. Like, that's a very real possibility. There's a very real reason that people don't do these things, this particular practice. It's just, it is high intensity. It's the same way somebody fears that if they did snowboarding, they could break a bone. And yes, snowboarders are more likely to break a bone than croquet players. It's you know what I mean? It's an extreme sport, and I really want to make sure that it's an extreme sport and the dangers are real. And so I always suggest, it's the same way I am with psychedelics, do it with somebody who has trekked to the other side of karma. And you won't be able to know if they really did it, but if they seem like they did it, meaning if they don't seem reactive, and if they don't seem reactive to their own stuff or yours, if when you have anything charged, they get more spacious rather than less spacious, if you feel that they can tell you their boundaries, their limits, then you're probably in good hands. And if they want to, that's the other thing, and if they're interested and if they're available for such a thing, there are some great people who can hold that space, because it's a very tricky space. You have to hold the space for wild stallions to go crazy without squeezing them in any way, because that will to power that we just read about, the will to power is very will to powery. It is it is intransigent. It's it must dominate at all times. It must dominate and control. And what are some other, imperious and grandiose. It's a megalomaniac. It's all of those things. That aspect of you and me is what we're unplugging. And so you can imagine that you can't just say, don't do that, or try to cap it back down, or tell it it's stupid. What you have to do is give it enough space so that it can just run free. And then once it runs free, then what happens is it normalizes. And then when it's called exhausting karma, it normalizes. And then once it normalizes, that's where you turn and you plug it into your bodhicitta. It integrates into your being, and in such a way that it's now powering your deepest soul desires. So this is just, so unless you are a person who feels like you came to the planet to bring something, there's no reason to do this. There just isn't. It's way too painful, way too difficult. I hope that I still have interesting things for you to hear the rest of this talk. But like, there's no motivation. It's a harrowing experience. Now, I like harrowing experiences, but I want to be honest. But it's very, you're holding these wild stallions, and if you're the holder, the consort, and you have to not squeeze in any way. The minute you squeeze, then you get a crazy backlash and all kinds of violence and things. So that's the basic procedure that we're doing. I say this to say that the will to power is the essence of what you work with when you enliven the klesha. Either the results of somebody who has squeezed their will to power, trying to be good, and that, then all of a sudden you unkink that hose. Wow! Oh my God! That was in there. Oh, honey, that must have been difficult. Or somebody who, is a practicing megalomaniac and only wants to dominate and have their thumb on people, and but neither one of them are particularly amenable to a lot of suggestions. So you're having to work with, and this is the power itself prior to all of that you're capturing, but you can't capture it until the live wire stops doing this, meaning until the fuel that's making it go, which is the klesha, relax. Then you can grab it and then you can move it over. So there you go. It's a real procedure. So how it tends to work is people keep this will to power very under the radar, right? And so, in men, typically they are under the radar. They are planning their harem, and this is the will to power character that's doing this. This isn't men. Men are wonderful beings, but that being that lives inside of men, that is plotting the amassing of everything, particularly through some kind of conquering and imagining themselves, central to some kind of harem experience. Not even a harem. A harem just sounds like too much responsibility, because what they're just the only customer in a brothel built for them. And any woman who comes along could potentially be a brothel keeper to help, but no more than that. And and being a brothel keeper, she can leave food at the door that one of the ladies who's coming to pleasure him could carry in and gently feed to him. Things like this. This is sort of like when every basement of every man I've ever been in includes this. And maybe it's not in your basement, or maybe you haven't been into your basement, but it is something of this order. With women, their will to power tends to be, these are the cultural overlays that the will to power comes through, if that makes sense. And but that doesn't mean you don't have both, just so you know. Okay, so the female will to power is that a subterfuge version of cozying herself up to a source of power that will finally, once and for all, do all of the work for her. That's that's hers. So she wants to, you know, fuck, kill, or steal. She wants to fuck, kill, or steal. Her way to enlightenment, her way to, you know, comfort, her way to self-esteem, her way to prestige and position, whatever those things are. Hers is to cozy up to somebody else to do it for her. Now listen to this. Just imagine a culture built with this hidden will to power and this hidden will to power. Now, both of them often have covers, masks, facades. Often, the will to power of this one, you'll never guess this. She's the good girl. In fact, I often say the better the girl, the more deadly the will to power, because it has never been able to come out and express. And so it is cunning, strategic, cutthroat, ruthless, cold, all with a big smile and some great tits. Like and those women use all of their efforts for the facade. So the facades are far more compelling than women who have the actual substance that the good girl, will to power women are advertising. You know, that these women can spend a lot on their window front. I mean, you're just like, oh my God, that is amazing. Oh my God, I'll even eat lunch there, okay? I am going there. And then you go in and you're like, there's no product in this store. It must be somewhere. I'm going to keep going. And you keep going and there's no product in the store. And so they're frantically putting up the storefront, keeping the storefront up and making it look like there's customers going in and out, but there's no actual product. So these are, you know, so then the panic is to keep it going, right? To keep it looking like you're going to have something, so that their will to power, I don't know what it would be, some kind of creature of the Black Lagoon could grab you and pull you down into their will to power room, and you're dead, you're gone. For a period of time, you are out of commission. And they'll just take you, and then they'll just feast on you. As, you know, until all of a sudden they realize that was a finite source of power and you're just outie, you know, and then they may send you back in the world to get more power for them, you know, and then, but, you know, they have no need for you when you don't have any power. And then, so you're imagining these two are, you know, they're hooking up, they're linking up, right? And so the nature of this one is it just wants to use this one, you know, without any responsibility whatsoever. And that's a key part of it. It deliberately wants to not have to care about this person. And this person is selling, you don't have to care about me. And inside, neither one really cares about the other. And neither one has any actual substance at this point. And so it's just this samsaric feeding loop that goes around and around. And because, and this is the important part to get here, because there's no substance, you get locked into that cycle. It's an addiction because there's no power to break out of it. Does that make sense? Because all addiction is lack of power. So your only option is real power, but this is so busy feasting, you can't get to real power. good. So then this is Rollo May, and he talks about Eros. Eros, the life force, directs our will. That's that will to power. Eros, if you get it plugged in to your will, okay, will direct your will toward your highest potential. Rollo May asserts that hate is not the opposite of love. Apathy and disinterest is. I really wish that modern psychology understood this, really, because what we keep trying to do is to get people's arousal down to an apathetic, non-dangerous state. No, no, no. That's the opposite of love. That is the opposite of what will bring human beings to their highest place. But detachment, the opposite of will is not indecision, but detachment, just getting through it, and non-engagement. So you can know that your love is low if you're apathetic. You can know that your willpower is low if you're in a state of non-engagement, non-participation, non-breaking through the membrane. May's central thesis is that Eros, love, is the fundamental energy behind will. Eros is the force that drives men to seek God. And people wonder why I love Rollo May. Eros is the spirit of life and is not to be confused with the sex drive. So how I might say that is that Eros is plugged into bodhicitta, and sex is plugged into self. Eros is the spirit of life and is not, the sex drive seeks satisfaction and release of tension, whereas Eros drives us outward. And this goes with Reich's material too. When he talks about orgasm, the big, not like the, orgasm as a state, what he describes it as pushing out, the energy pushing out from the center of the cell. So that they are thinking similarly here. So it's just, I always try to point the way. If you're having sex for any kind of release, that is not Eros. If you're having sex to expel any kind of discomfort, that's not Eros. If you're having sex to climax, that's not Eros. That is plugged into self, and that will only perpetuate self. Eros, however, is the creator, forever reaching out, seeking to expand. As Paul Tillich says, a movement from the potential to the actual, and vitality is the power of creating beyond oneself without losing oneself. Say that again. Vitality is the power of creating beyond oneself without losing oneself. It looks like a few people are losing themselves in the little talk today. Eros is the power from which we do not want release. What about that? Eros is the power from which we do not want release, but rather to be prolonged to form the world. Eros drives us to go beyond ourselves, to transcend ourselves, to reach ethical goodness, to seek truth and beauty. Let's say that again, just because it's so misunderstood and it's so beautiful. Eros drives us to go beyond ourselves, to transcend ourselves, to reach ethical goodness, to seek truth and beauty. May connects his theories to St. Augustine, Freud, Maslow, Joseph Campbell, and Plato, all of whom believe that love is the fundamental human experience, pervades all our actions, and is the deepest motivating force. Freud further believed that all civilizations are created by the disciplining and redirection of the forces of Eros. Freud further believed that all civilizations are created by the disciplining and redirection of the forces of Eros. So I think I talked about, maybe I didn't, but the end of this practice, you get on the other side of the wall of karma. And what do you do there? Well, you bend karma. That's what your aim is. You're no longer susceptible to the throes of karma, the movements of karma. Even if you're in the place, you're immune. You've found sanctuary. That's what arousal gives you. Arousal gives you a sanctuary from the afflictions. So you can be in the exact same situation that you used to be in, only this time you have sanctuary, primarily because you've agreed you're going to use it for good, we'll say. Further believe that all civilizations are created by the discipline. The task is not only to recognize our own power, but to recognize the self-aggrandizement that accompanies all human endeavor in this realm of power and love. May is similar to Jung in the concept of recognition of the shadow and demonic as guide to the self, as well as a path toward integration and concentrated power and life force. What is it like to be someone who has harnessed the power of Eros? May quotes Hegel. Socrates, like all heroes who cause new worlds to rise and inescapably the old one to disintegrate, was experienced as a threat. What he fought for is a new form which breaks through and undermines the existing world. That's my man. Are there any? Yeah. I could tell. Sweet Courtney. She wants to make sure she knows I like my questions, so I can see when one comes in, you can see her excited. Go ahead.
Isaac says, so nice to listen this morning. I'm curious if we are turning the arousal up, then do we eventually come down? Does it balance?
No. I mean, they say when you're an 8th level bodhisattva, you just keep going up, basically. You just stay in flight. And that's the aim, is to live in flight. That doesn't mean that you'll be able to. It just means that the aim is to stay in flight. And my understanding is that that's possible. So the thing about arousal, especially if it's clean burning arousal, the reason you want to come down is that you are tethered to a platform of identity, right? And so being tethered to a platform of identity, you have impurities inside of your arousal. And so it's like, the smell of burning rubber, you can only take it for so long. And then you just want to kind of come back, cool things off, let that burn off, and then go back up. But when you're really, really clean burning, then you just live in flight. And living in flight means, there are all kinds of winds that go up and down, and you just move with them. And so all you're experiencing is a stillness. There's nothing, because you're moving with whatever is while you're in flight. So there's no reason to force or make anything happen. You don't have to make yourself go up. You don't have to make yourself go down. Life is entertaining enough. You just move with it.
Will asks, sometimes you develop a relationship with the person and it sort of hooks into every disgusting tendency you have to be the better than everyone, to be untouchable, to consume, to take energy from her and use it for your own ends. But you seem to keep choosing it over and over again. How do you be a genuine friend to yourself and the other person there?
This person's name is Will. You got on the call on the right day, Will. I mean, I don't even, what a level of self-awareness to ask this question. And here's what I would say. My suspicion is that anybody who hasn't frozen, anybody who hasn't locked the door on their soul, anytime they come into arousal, and falling in love is a state of arousal, any male. Will you read those conditions to me again?
To be the better than everyone, to be untouchable, to consume, to take energy from her and use it for your own ends.
Great. And it's probably to take energy from her to use it for your own end of getting more women to take more energy from. That's usually how that works. So what you're doing in Tibetan Buddhism, you're meeting with the adversary, and there's two kinds. There's the adversary above and the adversary below. The adversary above is exactly this. It's a megalomaniac that believes that it has dominion over everything, that everything is its property, that everything owes them pleasure. And so all of the things that you described, pride, arrogance, self-aggrandizement, all of those things are part of it, entitlement. And then that's that first adversary. Then there's the adversary of below. The adversary of below is all of the things that you feel you're a slave to, right? You're a slave to fashion, you're a slave to vanity, you can't help yourself but eat sweets during the day. You can't help but fib. You can't help but all of those things. Those are the adversary of below. All of those arise in arousal. That's what I'm talking about. Exactly what you're talking about, Will, is exactly what I'm talking about. So the first thing is, this is good, this is positive in a certain way. And that is that if it's arising, then you're probably having genuine feelings for someone. There you go. You're probably, you sound like you're fairly honest with yourself and you're having genuine feelings. And then all of the sediment that was cool is now heated and rising for you to see. So I mean, you probably want to make sure that you're with somebody who is capable of meeting you in that place. I think that's the best thing to do is just, I mean, you should, Will, you don't want to date me because we would be talking about this all the time. I would be saying, and what else, and what else, and what else, and what else? What other conquering thought did you have? What other desire to consume did you have? What was it? You know, because you want to get it up and moving in the river, up and moving in the river. I can guarantee you that on either side of the river, it starts to cool and you can work until the cows come home. You can do 50 years of therapy. You can do 209 fourth steps. You can do every kind of self-examination and you aren't going to get anywhere, period. Sorry. The only way to do it is to get it into arousal, because it just needs to melt. It needs to melt because if you're sitting there working on it and you're working on yourself, that's you reifying, meaning making real fake stuff that isn't you. These things are they're just like energies that just got stuck in your, it's like pulling, it's like examining your poo, or it's like you have clogged arteries and you're just like, look at me, I need to examine all of this stuff in my clog. No, unclog your arteries. Yeah. That's what you want to do, because circulation then will cure everything. So the first thing you want to do is get it heated enough so that it gets moving. Then you want to get it in the river and you want to go. How do you do that? It is moment by moment by moment by moment vigilant, but relaxed vigilance. How about that? How are you going to do that? Sorry. I mean, the best way to do is talk about it while you're having sex. I mean, just run it all while you're having sex, because that's an aroused state, and just keep it moving through. And, you know, hopefully it's harder to get women hot enough in a state of arousal that she doesn't clinch on anything, that just keeps moving. So then you're going to have to say, if I were you, I mean, this is me as a man, I would say, if we're going to date, we're going to be having a lot of sex, a tremendous of sex. amount of sex, and it's going to be fantastic sex because it has to be sex that keeps us in arousal. And then during that sex, the only thing is we're going to be talking. And we're going to be talking about every single deep, dark secret, every single thing that happened during the day that we didn't tell each other. And and that's going to be our relationship. We're going to have to order out and like that. So I don't know. I say front load. That's what I say. A front load in terms of who you are. And those who are wise will know that this is a man who's advanced enough to know the primary instinctual karmas that exist and be grateful that somebody has that much self-awareness. And other people will just be like, that scares me. And you don't want them. You don't want them in that place because this is an adult swim. And it's dangerous for people who can't withstand other people's shadows or darknesses to be in there. So you have to vet very, very well, that this isn't, you're an advanced practice.
Rosalind asks, sometimes in high arousal, I can feel a pull to either dull it or push for more.
That's right.
I've been practicing to maintain high arousal consistently. Sometimes I can think that I'm increasing arousal to practice more, but really I've just gotten greedy or drunk on it. How can I, in the heart of these moments, recognize and tell the difference?
I do not know who these people are that are on this is my Instagram?
Yes.
I love you. I don't know. I've been doing this for so many years. Where have you all been with these advanced, wonderful questions? Okay. So greedy or dulling. So both of those are, those are the two tendencies. That's what we do, exactly. Greed, dulling, or rejecting in some way, which, so what you, I want to give you a really honest answer and say, the chances of you doing something to change those tendencies are minimal. The only thing you can do is just get back up, get in flight, get back up, get in flight, get in flight, get in flight, get in flight, get in flight. That's, I mean, I do text talking, text how to make it through difficult places. I mean, I think I say probably 75 times a day, stay in arousal, get in arousal, stay in arousal, get in arousal. It's the only thing to do. There is nothing else. And it will purify itself and demonstrate to you how. One of the things when you actually get your bearings, you know, when you first get in flight, you're kind of like, whoa. And so you can't hear anything. You're just like, I'm flying, I'm flying, 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 flying. Okay. And so, yeah. But then you kind of get a little bit more comfortable. And then when you get more comfortable, you can hear and you realize, wait a minute, there is what is that when they come over the loudspeaker? There's somebody telling me on the loudspeaker what to do, and then you just like, wow, this is amazing. This is like what they call the small still voice or the muse, whatever that is. It begins to educate you how to be with it. It really, one of the sweetest things about arousal is that it really wants you to be with it. And so it's so patient and so loving and just waiting for you to get to a place that you can hear it. And then it'll tell you everything you need to know. One of the important things to know is that I have, I don't know what I would even call this person, a guru, we'll say. I have a guru or a lama or something of that nature. And I listen to that person. I listen to that person with absolute clarity that they would treat me better than I would treat myself if I weren't in the room. That's how, and I hang my life on this relationship. That's how I work. So I do believe that relationships with people are important in listening. And it is a bad habit to listen to people. You know, we're often like, what should I do? I don't know what to do. What do you, because when you do that, you drown out the voice of inner wisdom of the experience guru so that you can't hear. So that's just, I mean, that's a little tweak. And then, you know, being intoxicated is awesome. But that was one of the things, like sometimes I get intoxicated and greedy. Intoxicated and greedy and hoary and all of they're wonderful. And enjoy them while you can. That's what I say. One time I said to this teacher, I'm just so upset that I'm so obsessed. And she said, you know, enjoy it. Someday you won't be. You know, and there'll come the day where you never are again, you know, and then you're like, no, it was always fun, you know, when you're free from it, it's fun. And so, and then you can't do it anymore. You don't have the klesha, you don't have the concentration, you don't have the tenessence that would drive the engine of obsession or greed or various things. So it's just like, pat, 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 pat. It doesn't, I mean, you have a little like, woo, but you don't have that thing anymore. So that's the other thing, is enjoy it. And then the third one is, my thought is, often what happens is when we get into arousal, we inadvertently contract. And that's what I think I'm hearing you say you do. We inadvertently contract. In the contraction, it produces a seeming feeling of excitement, or a feeling like we might climax, or all of those things that we kind of think we look for. No, don't do that. So as soon as you feel that feeling come, do the exact opposite and relax. And that's where the bliss comes in. The other one is increased intensity with anxiety. And then we associate that with, in our culture, we associate that with pleasure. That's not pleasure. No, real pleasure is when the arousal goes way up, and then you exhale, and then you relax, and then all of a sudden it spreads throughout your body. And then not only is it spreading across your body, but now you're relaxed, and now it's getting more and more vivid and more concentrated. And because you're in that relaxed state, you remember to relax even more. And then you relax even more. And then every single one of your senses is profoundly heightened. And then you begin to notice all of these nuances, these little twitches in your body, this swelling in various erogenous zones. You notice it, and then you do it again. You just relax again. And then you notice this sense, and this is why I think people don't do it, by the way. If you profoundly relax in a state of arousal, things get really trippy without substances. When you have very, very high arousal with tremendous relaxation, you open other psychic dimensions that you would open on psychedelics. Remember, DMT is in your, it's what's released when you die. It's already in you. You already have the most potent psychedelic in your brain, and relaxing and high arousal, my guess, is what releases it. But whatever happens, suddenly things are very different. You end up in what I call the eternal room, which is the reason that I started my whole journey. I love that room so much. And you end up in this place, and suddenly you're somewhere just in this state of eternity, and you have access to everything, access to all wisdom, access to all joy, access to all bliss. And then you are in just overflowing sufficiency. And then you just stay relaxed there, and then the cool fractals and visuals and everything just begin to increase. And then you take, what I do, or how I see it, is you take your seat there. That becomes, your dharmic throne, and that's your home, and you just come to relax there. And then you determine that you will never leave that seat, no matter what happens. And from that, all of your decisions, everything is made. I'm going to tell you this really funny story real quick that my Lama told me. He said that he was in Israel, and the alarms went off that there was going to be an airstrike. He said there were about 20 people in the room. 19 of the people ran into the safe room, and he didn't. He said because he had done the research that more people die running to the safe room than they do in these strikes. And so he remained. And then he said, another one happened the next day. And he said about 12 people remained in the room. The next day, there were 20 people who remained in the room. And 19, he said 19. He couldn't convince them all. But what I took that to mean is we have all kinds of alarms always going off in our heads, in our hearts, in our, around the world, whatever it is. And you're actually much safer just remaining on that particular dharmic throne, provided that it's extraordinarily relaxed. That's the only way to get hit the throne. And you just exist there. That is the seat of your consciousness. No matter what you're doing, you can be running around like a maniac. None of those things matter. You remain seated in that particular state of consciousness. And the beauty of that is that you are, as I said earlier, you're in a sanctuary from your afflictions. I would say there's one affliction. The affliction is squeezing or contracting. That's the only affliction that really exists. And then there's the checking out that comes from being so squeezed for so long that you release it and you just collapse. But really, it's just squeezing. And so you in that place, you're free from squeezing, we'll say, and which produces what we call greed. And that's what I would do.
Avery on Zoom has 2 questions. I would love to hear how a woman does the same as Will, but what would be the focus for a woman to ask herself during sex to clear the river? So the other side. And she also asks, how do we practice getting into this arousal over and over? Is it just presence, breath, sensing sensations?
I love these people. Okay, so the first one is, what is the question that?
I would love to hear the same as Will, but what would be the focus for a woman to ask herself during sex to clear the river? So the other side. Will was the one who asked. Sometimes you develop a relationship with the person and it sort of hooks into every disgusting tendency you have to be the better than. That's the Will one. So she wants to know the woman's side.
What is the woman's side? So the woman's side.
What would be the focus for a woman to ask herself during sex?
Maybe it's something on the order of what am I concealing? Both what am I concealing and what am I performing? Those would be maybe the 2 questions. And see if you could touch in, it's very difficult to be a totally available vixen and a woman who's hungry with desire. So, to really feel into what wants to emerge. Usually, maybe that's the best, is what wants to emerge here. And then the deeper question for a woman is, and in fact, we've been doing this. I was going to suggest people do this. You have to look at I'm going to say it's in a kind of hardcore way because I don't know any other way. What are the things you sell your soul for? Or what are the things that you pretend for? What are the things that you try to convince other people of? What are the things that you that make you conceal who you are? What are those things? And then once you kind of can see, I will sell my, I have a friend, this is a terrible thing to say, but she would sell her soul for a compliment for someone saying she's pretty. Just like you just own her, she'll give you the whole shop. And so like, maybe there's a place where that's your Achilles heel, or maybe it's something like somebody who pays special attention and sees you where no one else does, or whatever those things are, somebody who makes you feel profoundly safe, or and then you find that you betray yourself in order to have somebody doing that. Those are the obstacles to your enlightenment, whatever they are, but they can become the footsteps on your way to enlightenment if you use them well. And so you have to look at those, and then you have to say, if I got that, then what would I get? You keep running it. You know, if finally I got it, this thing that I assume will get me the thing I want, then, you know, what would happen then? And you have to run it all the way through to the end. Like, you know, I have a friend who's been obsessed with somebody. And okay, so you get him, you own him. He feels exactly how you determined that you've wanted him to feel since the beginning of time. Then what? Then what? And then you have to follow it all the way through the end, though. So I've done many of these with people. I can tell you, very rarely does anybody ever write it as a happy ending. And so that is how you begin to dispel the fantasy, because women have the idea that the locus of their happiness is outside of themselves, and they'll betray themselves in order to find that happiness or enlightenment or whatever you want to call it, access, whatever it is. So you have to follow it through to realize, oh my God, it isn't. Then you have another disturbing moment. Then where is it? Then you're going to discover the more difficult thing for women to discover. It's only you. There's nobody who can give it to you or do it for you. Even the best, the most enlightened, the Dalai Lama, like cannot give it to you, cannot do it for you. And then that's the next hitting bottom moment. And then, you know, then what am I going to do? Because most women shape their lives on the belief, especially that a relationship will do it. Or some kind of proximal power or something. And they spend their whole lives, and I was just talking to somebody about this today, and you spend, you know, a decade thinking that it's going to give you access to the place, arousal. It's going to give you access to the place. And then you discover not only did it not, but you've built up all this wreckage, protecting this thing that was supposed to get you access. And not only that, but you've poorly trained your nervous system. And wrong training is 10 times worse than no training. So now you've built up this wrong training in your body. So it's vital that you get really clear on this as soon as possible. Then what is the solution? What is the freaking solution? Because now you've run out of options, and nobody likes this one. Nobody. Stay in arousal no matter what. Stay in arousal no matter what. That is the best ally. I would say your only ally. You know, others are temporary allies, but they're people, so they're, you know, fallible. Stay in arousal no matter what. And then what you'll find is it starts turning you into the person that you are. It turns you into the person that you are, is what I'd say. And it has you drop off anything that actually isn't in your ethical structure, isn't in your joy structure, isn't in, you know, and so it's just shaping you. And oh God, in order to stay arousal, I have to be able to do this. I have to do it, and you just keep following it, and then pretty soon you build up gravitas, you build up a field around you, and then you have what you were actually looking for through all outside sources. And then was there a second?
The second question was,
oh, how do you get in arousal?
Yeah, is it just presence, breath, sensing sensations?
Well, I will start with, I think that relaxation is really underrated as a source of arousal. Most people already have such a buildup of overstimulation and arousal that when you relax, it's just right there to meet you. It's definitely there. But you know, I'm a practitioner of sexual energies, so sexual energies and desire and the like. Learning also, I was just talking to somebody about this. Learning produces a lot of dopamine. I love to learn, and produces arousal and turn on. But you know, I'd be lying if didn't say I think every woman on the planet should be doing an hour's worth of practice with their sexual energies in order to turn things on, in order to just have it be that you can even get in arousal. You know, arousal is like, first you have we'll say the stove on, right? So you have it on, and then you have to stoke it, right? That's really what being in arousal is. Most women have very little heat. In fact, you know, heat is really denigrated in our culture. True heat, pretend heat is way exalted, hottie, but actual heat isn't, because it's harder to hold it together. So, I mean, that's my most. I can give you like, you know, Joseph Campbell, follow your bliss, follow your desire kind of thing, but it's not going to work. So the most honest thing I would say is I would get in some kind of practice that works with sexual energies in a very deliberate way, that you are progressively turning up the heat. I can tell you that Tumo in Tibetan Buddhism, if you're uncomfortable with physical contact, is fairly effective. You know, I'm a go straight for the thing, but something like Tumo, something like Orgasmic Meditation, there are several types of iterations that are sexual practices that go along with the principles of something like that.
Paulina asks, there is a woman who is interested in my man. I've been trying to put your talks into practice about not having possession. She often doesn't leave him in good shape. Would love any thoughts you have of how to practice here.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I understand, sister. It's a sister just speaking. Yeah, wow, I get it. I really do. Arousal is what it's really the first thing that I would say. I mean, especially in conditions like this, because you're working with all kinds of things, right? You're working with a foreign energy entering your world in a negative way, perceived negative way. And do watch, though, when you say she leaves him in bad condition. Is that true? I mean, it actually may be. I want to say that. But is it true? Because sometimes you can, if you're not in arousal, you can be like, what could I use as a reason that I don't like this? He's in bad condition. But I really want to say, like, it really could be true. Also, though, I do want to say, like, that's also up to your man. It's up to your man to come back to you, gracious as hell, acknowledging what it's like to be held in your, you know, wide open space filled with love, so that he can explore, you know, relatively freely, and not come back. You know, part of his responsibility is to come back better than you left him, as a way of expressing gratitude, and to have more potent and clear energy and the capacity to mentalize your experience. This is a really important one in consort work, is remember that in his basement is the will to power. And the will to power does not care about your feelings, cannot acknowledge them. In fact, they're a nuisance. And so, like, no matter what he acts like on the surface, until that will to power is connected to you, it's going to be operating, and it's just going to be talking enough to get you to shut up and to be in a good mood, because your bad mood is inconvenient. And so it's going to be tolerating you. It'll be going through these things like that. So it's really important, I think, for every human being. There are a few things I think are really important: the capacity to mentalize, the capacity to imagine what it's like for you. And so sometimes what I'll say is, you know, I just want you to imagine what it would be like. And if there's a guy that he's jealous of or something of that nature in your life, don't ever try to make anybody jealous. Just don't, period, ever. for any reason. There's no reason to skillfully do that ever. But that doesn't mean don't ever let somebody feel what it would feel like if you were in the exact same shoes, so that they can feel the depths of your graciousness. Because men don't always know what it takes for a woman to open. And so you have to have them feel it in order to know it. It's not that they're dumb, it's that they've never been trained, and they have to feel it. And they also have to feel it in order to appreciate it. They have to know that you are opening and giving them a gift. So I would say, so imagine that you opened on my side and I went out, with Kelvin, and I went out on your energetic dime, and I came back and I was in worse shape. How would you feel about that experience? And hopefully, he won't block you. He's not defensive. Hopefully he can hear it and feel it. Then he can appreciate where you're at. Then in that place, you can use this to get closer. It doesn't matter what the woman wants or doesn't want. She's irrelevant, because then you're using all material for your intimacy. And that's really what the practice is. So then you can have just crazy tyrannical whores, just riding your man, and it won't matter, because he'll actually be able to feel as you while it's happening, and only experience it in such a way that it's within your shared experience together, that it's something that he's doing to share and bring back to you. If he's not doing it to share and bring back to you, you shouldn't be with him. That's my feeling. I mean, I'm not a big, as wild as I seem, I am not an open relationship person. I am use whatever you have for intimacy. And, part of what intimacy needs is a certain amount of novelty, a certain amount of freedom, a certain amount of exploration. But if it's not connected, if it's not to feed that pot, there's no reason to share space. There's, a lot of people. So, and then the other thing is I don't know if you have this option, but talk to the woman. I have a conversation that says something like, my consort, this is what I'm up to with him. What I want him free of all of the klesha that exist. And the way that I believe that happens is you put somebody in a scenario and you let them figure out how to not get hooked by various things, right? And sometimes they make a mistake, and sometimes they're just like taken by it, and then, but sometimes they remember to stay connected to you. And then what happens is they can go anywhere and do anything, and everything they do is just a fun experience that you're having together. It's just like an adventure, a vacation. And so I'll say to the other woman, that's what I'm up to. And it appears that you're here as one of those explorations or experiences. And I want to do it in such a way that we're working for his freedom together. And my desire is to have it be that he's in the sanctuary of arousal, and is not unconsciously dragged out, moved to and fro by anything that happens. Are you interested in that? I'm not interested in my consort interacting with somebody who doesn't have the same aim as me, other than him using whatever capacity he has to liberate anybody he can. But if he's not free, he's not liberating anybody. They're just sitting drinking together. And I don't want a drunk to come home. I don't need that. I don't need him drinking in that way, drinking the klesha. And I don't need him contributing to her being a crappy person, which messes up his karma. Everything is about karma. And so you have not only the right, but the obligation to do everything deliberately. When you're working in Eros, your karma is multiplied. So you better be very cautious. It seems everyone like, Eros, man, like I can just do whatever I want and I'm a horn dog. I can tell you, because now with Eros, you're dealing at instinctual karma, and you're dealing with people's souls because it's a magnified or heightened state. So anything that you do unskillfully, where if you lose a karmic point in the everyday world, you lose 10 in Eros. So you can go bankrupt very easily. It's not light fare. Go if you want light fare, go to sitting meditation. In that it's cooler, so your chances of making mistakes are fewer, and the mistakes you make will have fewer consequences. See, Eros is the ultimate bait and switch because people denigrate it. They think that it's a place without consequences when it's a place with manifold consequences. It's all consequences. Now, the beauty of that is that you can burn your karma off that much faster. But the danger of that, just like snowboarding, is the injuries are that much greater if you make a mistake. So you have to be that much more conscious.
Susan Cole asked,
Hi, Susan Cole. I love your comments.
When you're relaxed in a state of arousal, you open to other dimensions. Can you share your thoughts on being in this state solo versus with a man?
Yeah. Well, so that you know, I've publicly, although I'm going to pretend like I'm not publicly today. Just a little bit of water, and then I'll do my PSA, my public service announcement. Publicly, I am not for any kind of masturbation. And there's two reasons for that. The first is that most people use masturbation to decrease sensation. Remember, I think was it Rollo who said anything to seek satisfaction and release of tension. So that is antithetical to Eros. That's sex as opposed to Eros. And that's how most people use any kind of self-stroking practice. So I just across the board don't want to go into everyone's private practice and explain it. And I just say, no, don't do it. The other thing is, more often than not, it is a shortcut way of avoiding the surrender that is required in contact with a partner. And so people get resentful or hurt or upset, and then they say, I'm just going to stroke myself. I'm literally going to take it into my own hands. But a huge part of orgasm is the vulnerability and the nakedness of opening your nervous system to another human being. You can't take yourself out of control, and all Eros happens on the other side of control. So that's my basic thing. But if you come across an erotic network, sort of a Ethernet network, a virtual world, and there's like in the same way that monasteries have a network of energy that you can plug into, so do Eros centers, and you can plug into that, and it's a living field of Eros that you can plug into as you stroke, and then you can attune and listen. And that is, in my mind, there has to be other in order for there to be arousal. It's just the nature of it. It could be the visualization of a yidam or a deity. It could be plugging into this network, or it could be another person. But there has to be something back and forth, because it's positive flow can only flow if it has a point of destination. And so that's what you're looking for. So you have to have these two poles for it to happen. But it could be that you're plugged into this network and then you're sensing into it. And my guess from the comments of yours that I've read is you could easily find the network. That's why I'm giving you the real answer. So then you just kind of sense for the network as you're stroking. And what you're sensing for is this place where it feels like the wind is at your back, something is activated. It's like you don't have this woman, Lindsay, is this great example. You don't have a push mower anymore. Now it's a driver mower. And that's sort of, you've probably plugged into a network with that. If you meditate, the same thing happens in meditation. If you do yoga, all of a sudden your pose will be charged. It's the same thing. You've plugged into a pre-existing network. So you plug into that. And then the most important thing is, so in meditation, in masturbation, the prefrontal cortex, the chatter goes up, and so that you don't want that. So what you're going to have to do is relax and listen into the network. The exact opposite of what most masturbation is, which is to heighten and tighten. This is to let go and go low. And so then once you're in the network, though, I would say it's an extraordinarily profound experience. And there is a way, and the coolest thing about it is that eventually, if you have good manners in the network, you'll get your own login. You won't just be there on a guest pass, and you'll get your own login, and then you can contribute inside of it, and you can contribute to the flow of it. One more. Oh,
Go ahead.
You were talking about being in the corral of horses and to not squeeze. And what would be examples of how, as women, we want to squeeze it off, like a knee jerk and what would be the opposite of that squeezing to open and stay in arousal?
good. So I think when I was talking about the horse corral vision, I think it's hot. Is it hot? What I was talking about was if you're the holder. But also I'll answer both questions. So if I'm a holder for my consort and all kinds of their stuff is coming up, and I have never met a human being that didn't have hideous material, really, like, everything from violent to, really perverted to just cruel, all of these things. And so you have to be able to, in the face of their material coming up, to relax and open and approve. Because if the will to power catches the slightest glimpse that you've been, moved or affected, all bets are off in one direction or another. One could be harm, but the other could be just they shut down and you're not permitted back in. So you have to have worked your own interior self to code all of the places where you would contract into a place where you would relax. So you have to know all of the places where you would contract in yourself. So then that goes back to what would be an example of what a woman would contract against. I think usually it's seeing how I'm trying to not use connotatively negative language, because there is nobody's doing anything wrong down there, but it's when you catch a glimpse, when women catch a glimpse of how ruthless they are, some version of that, they usually contract. Ruthless, cold-hearted, anything like that, self-serving, self-preserving. And then the other is the range, intensity, and volume of their hunger. These are the two things that we close down. So it might be that, this image arises that by the way, this happens to not be mine. That's why I can use it. I want to get fucked by 10 guys all at once with, it's not mine because I'm a Virgo. So we don't, it'd just be so messy. And so, but I have this idea that I'm ABC, and it goes against the idea. All clenching, all squeezing is when a true desire arises from the primordial that goes against the manufactured identity. You try to squeeze it off so that the manufactured identity isn't threatened. All desire, all true desire threatens the identity because it's dynamic and the identity is fixed. So any of those. So then what you have to do is create an interior sphere of approval, space, etc., where you welcome to yourself and you code desire and ruthlessness. How crazy is this? As positive. Why are they positive? Because when you plug that ruthlessness, that impersonal drive into bodhicitta, that's what will take you over the finish line into enlightenment without harm, right? You can only get to enlightenment without harm. When you plug those desires into bodhicitta, then that becomes your drive of compassion. So they become wonderful things. So you have to begin to open space for them to open in order to get them plugged into the much deeper purpose. You can't drive them there right away. You have to just love them as they are, all mangled and control. You have 720 people coming. I'll be Bonnie Blue, or I know, like, it's a, same-sex desires are often uncomfortable for people who consider themselves heterosexual, or other ethnicities or religions. Or we all have our kinks, or one of my kinks for a period of time, it was like I could only talk about this when I was having sex in high arousal, so it would just roll down the river, was getting married. And so I would just be like, I want to marry you, daddy. And then, we kept rolling down. So whatever, all of those kinks. And so you just welcome them into the arousal space. How's that? Good? All right.
All right, we'll take some reflections. You can go ahead and raise your hand on the Zoom or in the room, or send your reflection in on the chat. We'll start with Rachel here.
That was so wonderful. And there was this talk a couple of weeks back where you said you're a barker, and I had never heard that word before, but today's talk was like you're a barker for high arousal or extreme arousal sports. And it was like every death-defying feat of arousal seemed so exciting instead of terrifying.
I see, that's good. I was thinking tomorrow of using some examples of death-defying, because they really do feel death-defying in the moment. Like you have to be like, I survived the last one. I must have it in me somewhere. And you're like going through like your Rolodex of possible tools you can, and then all the pages are flying out, and you're just like, so maybe tomorrow that's what I'll do. I did it with my friend Joanna last night. I was telling her, like, look, these are some of the things I've survived. Things survived in consorting. But when you do, you lose the klesha, you get the freedom, and you get the confidence. That's why you do it.
Matthias.
Hey, Nicole.
Hello, my friend.
An hour a day keeps the swamp monster away.
Oh my God, I love you. Oh my God. See, I need to prepare. You're gonna make our t-shirts, fair? Yeah, thank you, sweetheart.
Mm-hmm.
Nancy.
Hi, Nicole.
Nance.
I had the awareness. There's a sutra about fear that
Mm.
like fear is misunderstood. It's like we should go toward it and not away from it.
Yeah.
And that's what this reminded me of, these teachings. It's like the tendency would be to back away. But I realized that fear is arousal.
That's right.
Like misunderstood arousal. So that helps me a lot. So I
Fear
appreciate it.
is arousal with a filter of judgment. Exactly. Yeah. And that's why you go for it. And then you get in the center of it and you're just like, wait a minute, this just is just vast open space. Wait, what was I so afraid of? Fear is always better inside of it than out.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
Kevin?
Thank you for that wonderfulness.
Kevin?
Kevin Williams.
That is right. Kevin Will to Power Yums.
It's very different reading Rollo May from practicing Rollo May. Thank you. That was a beautiful talk, and like you bring such beauty to such danger.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna let you poetically flatter me this one time because it was such good poetry.
And then we got a few from online. Avery says, when Nicole shared to question during sex, what am I concealing? Where am I performing? This moved me as I've been intentionally having sex with someone after a year of only moving Eros with myself and others without any sexuality. Now I've opened sex to unravel my old patterning, and I've been allowing old anxious stream of consciousness to come through during, and he's been holding all of it. But recently I noticed the withholding patterns in my own vulnerability, and I fall into old patterning of being the chill girl. So this questions really illuminate where I can open again even more, where I was contracting out of attachment and fear. This feels so relieving and expansive to open back up to full expression again. Then Nicole posing the next inquiry, what wants to emerge here feels so alive to allowing moment to moment emergence of finding my deepest expression over and over. I genuinely can't express enough how profound and moving all your teachings have been in my life. I'm constantly digesting what you teach and applying it to my life. It's been life-changing in the few months since I found you.
Thank you. I'm honored. That's incredibly beautiful reflection and really written in a way that I could sense who you are in a very naked way. And I appreciate that level of honesty.
Salsabil on Instagram said, you hit it on the nail so hard on this one. I am truly in fear of my primordial desires and at the same time, truly not feeding my soul when I try to shun away from them.
Isn't that mine now? Thank you. Thank you for picking that one up.
And then Angela in LA says,
Angela in LA.
what a potent and beautiful talk about arousal. I was especially moved by hearing you talk following the thread I betray myself for, and if I finally get it, then love you, Nicole.
I love you so much. So much. Happy to hear your name. All right. Okay, so tomorrow, wow, that was fast. Tomorrow's Monday. Monday with Omari West and Nicole. See you guys later.